Hello and welcome to another episode of Lucky the Story. Today we have a very special guest, Mayor Mark Lauretti from Shelton, Connecticut. Today is a very special day because I have known Mayor for almost, I would say, 5 years. Well, I have lived in Shelton for 12 and a half years, but my interest in a community service started last 5 years ago. And I very well remember for the very first time when I went to his office and I say I want to, contribute to the community and I want to support any way I can. And he was very kind. He gave me the time, and the next thing I know, over the period of time, I worked with different individuals in the community to try to get. Little I knew, 5 years later, I will be actually talking to him today. So welcome to Lucky the Story, Mr. Mayor.
It's my pleasure to be here.
I am super excited. I'm like a kid in a candy store because this is a big achievement, to be honest with you. Because a year ago when we first started, little we knew that we will have so much individuals who have contributed to the society, and you are no different. I mean, if I could, say one thing, I definitely, when I was talking to my kid this morning and I said, I'm going to have a mayor, and they were super excited. Oh, now my father is going to interview a mayor of Shelton. So they were all bragging about it. But one thing came out in that conversation, and I think that was very commendable to hear this from a 15-year-old. I said, he's been the mayor for last 34 years since 1991. And the first thing it came out, he's a very popular guy. And that made me think, do I want to know him as a popular guy, or do I want to know him as a mayor who has contributed to the society? And I think that it's a combination of both, but I think it goes hand in hand. Um, so, the way I want to start this conversation and the way I want to take this journey for the next half an hour to 45 minutes, it's about most of the people in Shelton and across the state of Connecticut knows you as something that you have contributed so much for last 34 years consistently, and the record speaks to itself. But I think what I want to know is more about before 1991. Like, who is Mayor Mark Loretti before 1991, and how he got into the community service, how he made it to 1991 election and till 2025, which is the day after tomorrow, I guess, it's the election. So I'll start with there. Who is Mark Loretti?
Well, I'm just a guy who grew up in Shelton, Connecticut. I grew up with parents of the World War II generation who instilled great values in myself and my brothers and sisters. Like most families back then, the America's Greatest Generation, as it's coined, the contributions they made to America and the world were incredible. And that's what I remember fondly. So, I have been a blue collar person all my life, and not much has changed. I have a good work ethic. I think that's important. I went to college. People ask me what I went to college for. I told them I went to college to play basketball. And they said, "Well, what was your degree in?" My degree was in environmental zoology. And they look at me with cross eyes. I said, "Well, what are you going to do with that?" I said, "Well, look, if I'm going to go to school, I was going to endeavor into something that I enjoyed. I have a deep appreciation for the environment. It's important to our existence and our survival on the planet. And so I have a pretty good understanding. Little did I know that it would yield big dividends to me years later, when I became mayor, because we have endeavored to purchase in the city of Shelton over 2,000 acres of open space that are all paid for and that the public will be able to enjoy for eternity because it's dedicated as open space. But so I went to Ohio University and I played basketball there. When I graduated, I went to Europe and I played in the Italian Basketball League for a very short time. Came back and I went to Syracuse University as an assistant basketball coach under the legendary Jim Boeheim, who was a Hall of Fame basketball coach, college basketball. And when I was there, I got a master's in science education, so that qualified me to be a teacher. And so when I left Syracuse after 3 years, I came back to Connecticut and I took a job at Central High School here in Bridgeport. And I was a science teacher and basketball coach, which I stayed for about 10 years. During that time, I also opened up a family restaurant
In Shelton.
in Shelton.
Okay.
And I spent 15 years of the mayor who owned the restaurant, but 21 years overall as a restaurant owner. And that was quite an undertaking, being in business, and gave me a deep appreciation for some of the things that are wrong with government. People say, "Well, why'd you run?" And I tell them, like, I thought I could never understand why government couldn't make things work. As a business person and as a restaurateur, I couldn't just raise my prices in a bad economy. I had to find creative ways to pay bills and employ people and still put a product on the table. And I quickly learned that that is the spirit of the American business person. The entrepreneurism of America is just incredible. And it's paid dividends for me. And I've carried those strategies and philosophies into local government. And I thought that I could make a difference when I first ran in 1991, and that's really why I got into it. And so um, I think that we have exceeded people's expectations. Never envisioned that 34 years later I would still be in City Hall running the city, but Shelton is a very different place today than it was
I and
34
I
years
can
ago.
vouch you. It's even different than when I came in 2013. My younger one was just 1 month old, and I can definitely say, and I will say a little story about this, and it may come to you as a little laughing thing. My one when I was planning to look around the houses, and I said to one of my friend, I said I'm planning to get into the Shelton, and he said, "Who goes to Shelton?" I said, "Well, I'm planning because the taxes are low." And he said, "No, Shelton is not a good place." Guess what? 12 years later, he's trying to find a house in Shelton and he's not able to find because he thinks the houses are expensive and it's beyond his league.
Well,
And
and he's right. They are expensive now because the value of Shelton,
has
people
gone up.
will want to be here.
Yeah. And the demand has gone up.
Yeah.
And also, I would say that because I also run a food pantry. So I was in Westport. I was talking to one business owner and I said, you should open up a Cobb's bread. I don't know if you have heard, it's in Westport. So we actually take a bread from them and go to the food pantry. So I was talking to them and I said, you should open a shell. He said, yeah, everybody's talking about shelter. We want to, but it's not easy to get the space. So even the business people also want to come in. It's the high end people, right? But I wanna go back, Mayor. I wanna talk to you. I wanna understand that 1991 when you first ran. How did you decide that you wanted to run for the mayor? Like it has to be a strategic thought process, or it was a moment that came in your life and said, "No, I want to run because things are not working out well in Shelton."
Well, it was a very bad economy, not only in Shelton but in the country
You're right.
at the time.
The
And
Iraq War happened, and that
yeah,
time.
and it was just very difficult for people to make ends meet. And I felt like I could make a difference, and I had something to offer, and I never wanted to be someone to be able to point the finger and complain about how bad things were. So do something about it. And so I did. I set out to do that, and we put together a team, a very supportive team that understood local government probably more than I did, and also um, understood what the values of people were and what the priorities of not only Shelton but the country. And so, it was a learning experience for me when I first walked into City Hall. I had a lot to learn about government and the process, and how you get things done.
And nobody in your back family was involved into the.
No, no,
So you
no.
were completely
I
blank
went
slate.
into this thing stone cold.
So how did that? How was that? I'm just trying to. The reason I'm asking this because we have an audience behind who's a 15-year-old, and I want them to understand that if you have an interest and a passion for something like this, there is always a way. I'm just trying to go back. Like how did you manage to gain the vote? It's not like you just come in and say I'm gonna try and it's gonna happen, right? Was it was it difficult, and how did you manage through that difficulties?
Well, look, I'm local. I'm homegrown. People knew who I was because of I had a pretty successful athletic background. So athletics was big in Shelton, in the Valley, in Connecticut at that point in time, and everybody paid attention. So that kind of gave me a little bit of an advantage because I had some name identification, and your competitiveness that you get through sports is what I applied on the campaign trail and what I applied through my tenure as mayor. You got to work at it, and you got to success is important, and failure is not an option. And so, when you work at things, you put people in the right places, you let them do their job, and you get a good result. And if they don't, then you make changes. And so, I had identified that there were many things that needed to be corrected. Most significantly, in Shelton was people's ability to afford to live there, and that's why I zeroed in on that right from day one, and I continue to do that. Affordability is everything. All the state politicians talk about the housing crisis in Connecticut. And I said, no, it's not. There's no housing crisis. It's an affordability crisis. People can't afford to be here, and that's because we tax too much, we regulate too much, and it doesn't work.
Um, so, Mayor, when you and again, I'm going back to 91 because we'll slowly come to 2025 gradually. But the day when you took that office and today, now there is another election year. What is that one thing still remains with that as a recipe that thinks it's working? And if it is working, which is because the people have voted for 34 years, why is that the other town are not able to adapt that recipe?
Well, because there is something to be said for consistency, consistent in who your leadership is. And I was fortunate enough to win 17 elections, but I also think that people understood that they got value for the things that we were doing. And people always said to me, "Oh, why don't every 2 years you got to run for election?" Yeah, there's no term limits in Shelton. I said, "Yeah, there is term limits." I said, "Every 2 years I have to run for reelection, and
And
I
is
have
it
to
a state mandate to make it 2 years, or you can make it 4 years if you want
you
with
can
a
make it 4 years, but that has to be done in the charter,
charter?
in the
Okay.
city charter." And
Yeah.
and people say, "Well, why don't you change it?" I had no interest in changing it. If people couldn't understand what we were doing, and that things were progressing within that 2 year period, then maybe I shouldn't be there. And and that's okay. I'll go on. I'll go do something else. But look, at the most productive years of my life have been spent in City Hall, and I think that there's a product that we have delivered to the people that live there that will last for a very, very long time.
So, what would be that one product that you would highlight that you think has definitely worked? Is that keeping the taxes low and keeping the good control on the budget?
It's all about the money.
It's
It,
all about
it
the
it
money.
always is, because you can't do anything without money. You couldn't buy 2,000 acres of open space. You couldn't build new schools. You couldn't repair roads. You couldn't upgrade your emergency services, if you didn't have the finances to do it. And I would stand here today and tell you that I never dreamed that we would be able to say that we are debt free. The city of Shelton has very little debt. I'm not sure that anybody in America can say that, but we can. And when you are in that position, if something happens, you have the ability to do it. So the priority is public safety and financial stability, because you have to have. Shelton has always had a good quality of life, and so when you maintain that and improve that by enhanced services, whether it's education or recreation or the road structure, it's all encompassing. And we've been able to do that because of our financial structure.
And thank you for that insight. Um, you know, and this is I'm thinking it from a perspective of somebody who's just moving to Shelton and who is in their 20s or 30s, right? Now you have a legacy of almost 30 plus years working in this space. People who have, I remember 3 weeks ago, you gave a speech in our Republican committee that people have come, people moved to another town that you knew, people some passed away, old generation. How do you bring that connectivity for the people who are just new, who doesn't know Mayor? Like, how do you bring that message out, and how do you connect with those individuals who are new to the town and who are young?
Well, I think they do that on their own. They do their due diligence. They look at different communities. They see things that are enticing to them, and then they make a decision. For young people, they get all worked up over the educational system, and look at Shelton has had a lot of great success with our educational system, and sometimes we don't get enough credit for it.
Robotics is one of the big one in.
Robotics is. I tell a robotics story all the time. It's great.
It's
All these other towns that get accolades from some people about education don't have nearly the AP courses that we have at Shelton High School, the robotics program that we have, the success in sports and athletics that we have, and that's a real plus. I tell people, hey, I'm a product of Shelton High School. My kids are products of Shelton High School, the Shelton school system. My sister's kids, my brother's kids, and there are many generations of kids that have come through the Shelton school system that have fared extremely well, and that would be insulted if you said to them, "Oh, you got to do a better job with education." No, we're doing a pretty good job right now in education, and people need to understand that.
You know, that's a very good point. I want to touch on that education aspect, and I'm talking it from an individual who is an immigrant. I'm talking it from an individual who have a younger kids. Um, do you think that because Shelton has made a good progress, I mean, it from where it was like 20 years ago or 15 years ago, a good progress. Do you think that somewhere strategizing the investments in different areas could sometimes unbalance an education which some of the critics may say that this is the reason there is no good outcome to what they would like to see compared to Westports or compared to Bloomfield or compared to some other places that they are more keen towards.
People are going to see what they want to see. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder.
Okay.
The statistics of success are here. We were an old industrial blue collar city, and we've changed. We're a different place than we were 30 years ago. And so, I don't try to talk anyone into coming to Shelton. If you can't figure it out on your own, okay, move on. And then as time passes, you'll appreciate the value that's been created here because other people have seen it. There's not a loss of influx of people that want to be here. The businesses that why do businesses come here?
So I was going to ask you that what is the recipe for people coming here? Why do they want to come? Is that just the taxes, or that has to be bigger than just taxes? Because at times, I believe, and I can speak because I'm from India. One of the thing, and I can say from an outsider, when I came here 30 years ago, 25 years ago, one of the reason why America is America because the stability of the government. So anybody who's investing in America, they see a stability in the government. Now, it's a different story in every era, but Shelton has a stability of a same mayor, same strategy, same thought process. Do you think that is one of the reason um, why there is a more attractions to the business, or there is more to it, or it's also like you also have to sell yourself. Hey, come, no?
No, people don't get caught up in the individual. They look at the municipality, the city, and they say, okay, what are the attributes here? Most people don't know that um, on any given day, there's anywhere from 22 to 25,000 people that commute into Shelton to come to work. We've become an employment hub in Connecticut, and most people don't know that. There's a reason for that, and it always goes back to the affordability factor, especially if you're a manufacturer in Connecticut. It's so expensive to be here. So anything that you can save from a financial standpoint is an enhancement. If you talk to the property owners that own these office buildings, they'll tell you that the taxes on their buildings are probably $2 to $3 a square foot cheaper than the surrounding communities or anybody in Fairfield County. So if you have a large company, let's say just a hypothetical that has 100,000 square feet, if you're going to come to Shelton, you're going to be $2 to $3 cheaper in taxes than you are than all the other surrounding communities.
But then how do you manage when there is a demand and keeping that rates? Because when there is a demand, the price also goes up, right? How do you manage that?
What are
Like
you
when
talking
when a lot of people are coming in, obviously the price will go up, no? It's like a demand and supply. If everybody wants to influx in, wouldn't wouldn't the cost go up for people? Say, I would not sell it for this price.
No, it'll come down
Why would it come down?
because the more people that come in, the more contributions into the system that you get.
Okay.
So businesses um, pay an awful lot in taxes and take nothing out of the system. They don't put kids in the school system. They don't tax the wastewater system. They don't tax the roads. I mean, if you see the way we're laid out, the biggest impact is on Bridgeport Avenue. And if people don't want to go to Bridgeport Avenue, they don't have to. So all the traffic that's coming off of Route 8 onto Bridgeport Avenue stays on Bridgeport Avenue. Doesn't go into the residential neighborhoods.
Talking about Bridgeport Avenue, I have a question on that. So I'm sure a lot of people may probably be asking you about the Bridgeport Avenue. The progress is inevitable. Everybody has to progress in order for it to be where we want to be in 20 years, 30 years. The Bridgeport Avenue, what is today, or at least 10 years ago, is different than what is today. It's going to be different in another 5 years, right?
Right.
How do you keep that? How do you keep the characteristic of a Shelton town, which used to be 15, 20 years ago, and yet keep that progress in place?
Well, the beauty of Bridgeport Avenue is that it doesn't affect the residential neighborhoods. It doesn't affect their quality of life in the surrounding neighborhoods, but it provides a lot of different services for people. Once upon a time, we never had a pharmacy in Shelton. Now we have three national brands. We have 7 hotels. The city of Bridgeport has no hotels. They're the largest city in the state of Connecticut. We have 7. We have 3 major grocery stores. And now a fourth is slated to come.
Trader Joe?
Trader Joe's.
Good.
So
You're looking forward. Do you think that?
people have choices?
But then, do you think with the Trader Joe is going to be a lot of traffic? A lot of people. I mean, I'm talking not as a host here. I'm talking as a citizen of a Shelton. Do you think that this can also create a lot of traffic? And how would you manage that if that's a question comes to you as a call?
Well, of course you're going to have traffic. Traffic is an end product of success. You can't be successful without traffic. And the beauty of this traffic is that it doesn't affect the rest of the city. It stays on Bridgeport Avenue. Unless local people are coming to Bridgeport Avenue, then they're going back to their respective neighborhoods. That's the beauty of Bridgeport Avenue. People say, "Oh, it's getting like the Post Road or US 1." No, it's not.
Do you get the calls and do you get the
Well, I've heard that comment only at election time
only in the
over the years. Yeah, because your opponents always want to project doom and gloom.
I'm going to talk about we're talking about opponents, right? How do you handle criticism? Because at your level, everybody who's just walking down the street see the pot in a hole, he'll give you a call. I mean, this is wrong. How and I don't know why you're not able to handle this. How do you handle criticism from your political opponents, as also as a citizen who is actually a citizen of a Shelton?
Well, I really don't pay attention to my political opponents. I pay more attention to the citizens. If they have a legitimate issue that needs correction, then we work towards correcting it. That's part of the role of government. Your political opponents, you only see them a month and a half before the election. You don't hear from them for the prior 2 years. So all of a sudden the sky is falling a month before the election? Okay. How's that work out?
That's actually the every place. It's not just the city of Shelton, but
Yeah.
every place, right?
Yeah.
But I have to tell you this, and I don't think I have ever told you this. One thing from the time I have met you, I found a good confidence in you. Is that the confidence always there? Or is it the confidence that has come over the period of time to what you have delivered and people have accepted you the way your leadership is?
Well, look at life as an evolution, right? Everything evolves, and even your demeanor, your mindset, the way you deal with issues, it evolves. You become smarter. Knowledge is power, as the saying goes. And so, I have attained a lot of knowledge over the years, and I've learned not to respond to criticisms that are not validated. And when you respond, when people in the public are questioning, hey, is this true? Is it not true? And then it's time to respond. And so what I say to most people when they say, well, okay, tell me, when did you learn this, And how long do you think this has really been going on? Or is this a product of what someone just said? Because some people say a lot of things that are not true.
So how do you navigate? You filter it.
You have to filter it, and sometimes you ignore it, and sometimes you respond to it. Depends on what it is.
But does it, like, and I'll give you my example. I work at the corporate office. Sometimes, if something somebody says, it just bothers me for a month, or why he said what he said. It's hard to let go the negative thoughts that comes to your mind. But how is that? Is that just the experience or just the position you are in? If you start looking at every corner, you won't be able to reach the goal.
Yeah, you can't get caught up in the minutia. You can't get caught up in what every time someone says something. The only time you have to worry about what they're saying is when it's true. Because if it's not true, it goes away. Somebody said to me, "Oh, did you see the headlines in the newspaper?" And after about 6 months of that, I would tell them, "Don't read the newspaper anymore. Do yourself a favor." Because the next day the headlines will be different. And people forgot what the headlines was the day before.
People have a tendency to forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because there's so much coming at them that, unless it's true, why get worked up over it? You can't change the outcome.
You can't change the outcome.
No.
Mayor, as I was telling you, we have a young kids in the back of the camera. If they have to listen about, like, what does Mayor wakes up in the morning? What does his day looks like from start to end? Like, at a very, like, what are some of the things that he has to keep? Like, is it like making sure you have a team? Like, how we watch all this web series and they say there is a presidential, there is a situation room. Do you also have, like, at a small level where you meet as a team? Like, do you have like that kind of, like, how does the mayor's day look like?
It changes constantly. Every day is different because things change from day to day. I have a lot of contact with my department heads, and years ago I was criticized by my political opponents and by some people that I micromanage. And so finally, after about 10 years of hearing that, I would say to them, "Well, you're right. We agree. We finally agree on something because I do micromanage because I want to know what's going on, and I want to talk to my department heads, and I want them to validate to me what they're telling me and why they're doing something, why they're spending money." And so, if that's all they can say, I'm okay with that.
So I was having a discussion with one of my friend, and he asked me this question to ask you, in a nicer way. He said, if you get a chance, ask Mayor why this town is so frugal. And I said to him, I said, it is because that's why you're here. Your houses are cheaper in a way, your taxes are low. And guess what? Not every town gets to have a free recycle in the garbage bin. We get a free recycle and garbage. People don't realize that.
And we don't have a fire tax.
And we don't have a fire tax. Yes. People don't see that.
Well, some people do and some people don't.
And that was my research when I moved. I said this is a good thing, right? So, what is the biggest asset that you think as a mayor you have right now in last 34 years? Like, what is, if you have to look back, like, what's your biggest asset for you to continue? Because it's not a one-man ship show, right? It's a collaborative team effort. What is that one asset that you bring on the table and say, this is the reason why I'm thriving for 34 years?
It always goes back to the finances because you can't affect change unless you have the ability to pay for it. And so we've had the ability to pay for it. And we have. When something goes wrong that needs correcting, we can do it. Whether it's a road, whether it's a bridge, whether it's buying new equipment for the public works, we just do it because we can. And it doesn't impact, you don't see that in your taxes. People have criticized our educational system because of the amount of money that we spend on education, which is less than everybody else. And I said, okay, don't stop there. Look at what we spend on police. Look at what we spend on fire, parks and recs, the roads. We spend less in every category than everybody else because we do a better job. We do a better, it's not easy to say no, but I've said no. No, we're not doing that. But here's what we're gonna do.
So to that to that point, right? If there is a citizen of a Shelton comes to you and say that I have a choice to go to the Walmart or a grocery store to Walmart, or I have a choice to go to the Whole Food, I would rather give it to go to a Whole Food, but I get this experience. How would you answer to those who wants to have a better and be okay to spend more and have a little better than what they would like to see here?
Well, everybody, some people think that we have to spend more because that's what they're being told. And that's not always the case. And I've proven that time and time again, especially with the education budget. These young parents would come and say, oh, give them what they asked for. And I would say, well, why? Do you believe what they're saying to you? They don't have a history of being right. And so, the answer is no. Prove to me that you actually need it and it'll be there.
So
But
do
but I do that with everything.
everything, right? Yes, and I have witnessed that, which is a good thing. But do you, when there is an election time, do you do the research, or your team does the research to say that okay, the demographic is changing and the youngers are coming more and more? If people are going to ask this, and you have a certain way of going through this process, do you think that can impact the way the election season can be?
Well, everything can, and there's always things that can impact an election and people's thinking. Um, we see it nationally. The things that are on the news that are not true, and so people talk about Trump. Well, before Trump, there was me because I was very outspoken on a lot of things, and I would tell people that they're wrong, and if they didn't like it, okay, it's okay. You don't have to like me, but listen to what I'm saying and evaluate if what I said has merit or is correct, or is it rooted in fact. That's what's important. And look at the end of the day, it's not the headlines in the newspaper that matters to me. It's being right because tomorrow there'll be a new headlines.
I'm gonna take this. So when somebody says something at my work, I'm gonna keep that in mind. Um, you know, I wanna I wanna go 2 years back, Mayor. The election night. I remember it was on a Bridgeport Avenue in Shelton down when we had the old headquarters. Do you
Mm-hmm.
remember that?
Yep.
And it was around like 10:30, and we were looking at the numbers. Everybody was excited. Everybody knew that you will make it. I was watching your face expression. I saw a little anxiousness on your face. Do you think, even though you have delivered for back then it was 32 years, do you think that that anxiousness is there and it is good to have that anxiousness on your face?
Well, anxiousness from a standpoint of let's get it over with. You know,
Okay.
if people can't see the value of what's been provided over the last 30 years, what else can I say and do to them? People. I just got a phone call from a woman who moved in from Westchester County. She's been here 18 months, and she had one question.
And
I said, okay, well that's not so bad. You have one question.
go ahead.
I said to her, why'd you move here? What brought you to Shelton?
And
I said, okay, well think about that because I've been in leadership for the last 34 years. How do you think those things happened? It didn't happen by accident.
it didn't. I mean, it takes
It-
a
you
lot
know,
of leadership.
well, you have to have good people and you have to have a good team.
And I can say that, like, everybody, I mean, John Anglis actually was on the show, 90 plus, and he still, I don't know how he does it. I don't know.
John's an incredible person, boy. Let me tell you, he's been a good partner. He's been a good soldier. He's a great public servant.
And I remember when he speaks, people listen, even at this age, and so to you. Um, I wanna touch on the governorship. I remember, was it 2014 when he ran for a governor for state of Connecticut?
Yeah.
So obviously, we know the history about the state, the way the state has been, the color wise. Um, but then you also have a history of what you have delivered as a mayor. What could have gone wrong in the process that you would not have been able to convey the message to be in that seat?
Well, it's with the Republican Party
And
because if you can't get on the ballot, you don't have an opportunity to compete. And Republicans are they're poor at candidate selection, And the last six gubernatorial elections show that. They're more interested in who their friends are other than actually someone that can win. You don't win 17 times by accident. And it's not the same people who elected me the first time that are electing me on the 17th time because people have
Change.
changed.
That's exactly what I was saying.
And
Yes.
so Republicans just couldn't see that. And okay, how you doing overall? I mean, look at what your position is. You're even the people in the state legislature. They wake up in the morning and maybe they beat their chest a little bit, but you don't have any authority. I never wanted to be involved in government and not be able to affect a change. And in Shelton, I can do that and have done that. If I were fortunate enough to get on the ballot, I believe that I'd be governor today.
And I think you would do a great job. I think
Because the general populace understands who Mark Lauretti is and understands the value of what's been created in Shelton, and would love to see that for the state.
so. Mayor, does it discourage you when you feel like a setback that you were not able to make it to that set? Does it impact you? Do you take this personally, or it is things that happen? You tried, it didn't work, and you move on.
Yeah, I think you have to. You can't dwell on things that you don't have any control over. And look at the party in the Republican Party in Connecticut is hapless. They've had no success, and that's unfortunate. In my tenure, you look at John Rowland won three times. He was Republican.
Yeah, I
Lowell
remember
Lowell
when I,
Liker won. He was Republican, and Jody Rell won.
Jody Rell was there. Yeah,
Yeah. So don't say that a Republican can't win. The right Republican can win.
and I remember Jim Fain was here, and he was saying that we have the. I think the Republicans are trying to bring their mark up. There is a specific word he used. I can't remember exactly, but he said that we are coming into from red to something. He used the word. I am politically, I'm not aware, but he's saying that Republicans are making their way up. Is that a true statement?
I don't know how. We've lost seats in the last election, so I don't. I really don't understand what he's talking about.
So, what do you think what we should do as a Republican? What do you think one thing we should do, uniting, and what could that be so we could come back on a state level?
Well, if they want to control Hartford, they have to reach out to the cities, and Republicans don't go there, and that's unfortunate.
Okay.
You got to spend time in Bridgeport, Waterbury, New Haven. If you do that and you can garner support there, you can be the governor.
So those are the three major cities.
Those are the three major cities. Because if you look at the election results over the last 5 or 6 elections, suburban Connecticut performs pretty much the same. It's what happens in the cities. And we don't have candidates, with the exception of me, that spends time in the cities.
Are you planning to, or this is still on the air? Like, would you prefer to run back if you have a choice, or if you want to?
Well, I've told people that if Governor Lamont runs again, that I would not run.
Okay.
He's been very supportive of what I've done here, and we get along. I think he's done a fairly good job overall, and personally, I don't think that he can be beaten.
But I like this characteristic of yours because you're now talking. You're Republican. He's a Democrat. You're still appreciating. So it's beyond the politics. It's about serving to the community and having a big hand. So I think that's a big thing. Would you agree?
It's absolutely everything because there's a reason why I get so much money out of Hartford. It's because of the relationships that I have fostered with the political leadership, and they're not of my party. So, I've been able to do it. Not everybody's been able to do it. So yes, it's time to get past the labels of R's and D's.
I agree. Um, I would love to continue this. This is all these questions that I had. I was scared to ask you in person. I got this opportunity, so I'm so thankful for this platform. Um, I want to ask this before we kind of come and wrap up this interview. If somebody wants to look at you, how would you want to see the legacy of yours in next after you retire or if you retire? Like, how do you want this torch to be passed to the new generation if that person is taking that?
Well, I think that they have to understand where the city was in 1991. and look at it today because we're miles apart, and that really that'll open up the gate of knowledge for them if they understood where we were financially, what the city looked like, what downtown looked like, what Canal Street looks like today, what it looked like then, the farmers market, the pavilion on the Housatonic River. You 30 years ago you couldn't go there. You couldn't stand there. It was contaminated. There were burnt out buildings. There were buildings that were crumbling. There were old factories. And now look at it. People are living there.
4th of July fireworks happens there, right? At the
Fourth of
front.
July fire, you got 15, 20,000 people
I
that go
love
there.
it. My kids actually go there and we go there. Um, if I have to, I know that this is an election, November 4th, right?
Tuesday.
Any message for anybody and everybody that you would like to give?
Just go vote. People need to vote. The biggest enemy for me is the apathy. People say, he doesn't need my vote. He's going to win anyways. And we get low turnouts. We get low turnouts in Shelton, except when it's a presidential election.
And today is the last day for early voting, right? If I'm not mistaken. Was it today?
I don't know. I don't know that early voting means anything, but okay.
Why?
Because people are going to vote if they want to vote, and they're going to find the way to vote.
Okay.
And look at all these years, we didn't have early voting. People voted.
People voted.
Right. And the same number of people are voting now, even with early voting. That just
Okay.
means that they're doing it the week before.
Are you anxious? You okay? Do you feel anything otherwise? Do you read the numbers? Do you see what's going on? Do you strategize?
No.
Nothing. You
No.
just go with the work that you have delivered, and you are confident that either they take it or they don't take it.
There's nothing I can say or do. If I have to beg people to vote for me after 30 years, 34 years, something's wrong. Something's radically wrong.
I love that. Thank you, Mayor. I
Okay.
truly appreciate your time. I know it's an election season. I know you have a lot of places to go, but thank you very much from my heart. I genuinely enjoyed this conversation. I'm pretty sure my kids have learned so much from you.
Well, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So this is Mayor Mark Lauretti, and I am so thrilled that I can't thank enough from my heart that he gave this opportunity to come to our show. I know we've been trying for last many months, and finally he agreed to it. So genuinely thank you. I hope you get to enjoy this show. Please leave a comment if you have any questions. Thank you.